And so for them to make the attempt to do this hostile takeover in cities that are being led by these black leaders, what is your end game? The end game, to me, it appears that he wants to let it be known that we're incapable of leading. We're incapable of taking on leadership roles and being successful in those leadership roles. That's what this is all about, because black folks did not ask for your help in Los Angeles or in Washington, D.C. So with that, I'm going to put this up on the screen because, again, the notion is that crime is at an all-time high in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to put this up on the screen here. So as you can see, and this is from the Department of Justice, and anyone can go to the website and look it up. This is from the Department of Justice. As you see down at the bottom, justice.gov. Anybody can go to it and verify it themselves. Don't take my word for it. I'm just the messenger. And you know how they like to kill the messenger, blackball the messenger. So as you can see, violent crime in D.C. hits 30-year low. After that, I'm going to put this up on the screen because I want to show these statistics here of Washington, D.C., not only Washington, D.C., but also just states as it relates to, quote, red states versus, quote, blue states versus blue states. So, as you see on the screen right there, as it reads, numerous reports show that states that lean Republican, or quote, red states, have consistently had higher per capita murder rates than states that lean Democratic, or quote, blue states. The trend, which began early in the 21st century, contradicts the political narrative that crime is primarily a problem in Democrat-led cities. Also, data from multiple sources illustrate a significant gap in murder and homicide rates between red and blue states, though there is some debate about how to interpret these statistics. So if you go by state, a 2024 analysis by a think tank called Third Way, non-biased or bipartisan or nonpartisan, found that murder rates in red states were 33% higher than in blue states in both 2021 and 2022. But if you turn to Fox News or Newsmax, they'll tell you the total opposite, that crime only happens in Democrat-run cities, right? So I'm going to go here next. I'm going to go here because you have what's called the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation. And we all should know by now that the Heritage Foundation and its members wrote what's called Project 2025. We all should know this by now. So, a 2023 report from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, challenged state-level data by looking at county-level data instead. The report found that between 2014 and 2020, homicide rates were higher in counties that voted for Joe Biden than in those that voted for Donald Trump. Heritage noted that when looking at averages across entire states, a few heavily populated blue counties can skew the state's total murder rate. Third Way, however, has addressed this by showing that even when large cities are removed, murder rates in Trump voting states remain higher. So I'm going to go here next, because again, the notion is that crime only happens in states that are represented by, quote, Democrats, or in, quote, blue states. So I'm going to go here. So as it reads, let's see, you have gun violence, property crime, crime clearance rates. Nationally, clearance rates for both violent and property crimes were at their lowest level since at least 1993, according to Pew Research Center analysis of FBI data. And then we have a few factors and caveats. Researchers offer several explanations for the statistical differences in crime rates between red and blue states and warn against simplistic interpretations. Excuse me, and you can see gun violence, property crime reports that every state saw its property crime rate decline between 1991 and 2022. The most significant decreases were in Florida, Massachusetts, and Idaho. So now I'm going to go here to this last one. So I'm going to go here. So gun control. So I read that some point to differing gun laws as a factor, noting that firearms are used in a large percentage of homicides and that many red states have more lenient gun laws. Demographics and economics. Other analysis suggests that demographic and socioeconomic factors such as higher poverty, low education levels, and substance abuse rates may play a role. Research from the Manhattan Institute notes that when controlling for such variables, the differences in homicide rates between red and blue states become less significant. Urban versus rural. The Heritage Foundation and others argue that crime tends to be concentrated in urban areas, meaning places where there are mostly black and brown people. That's what they call urban. Versus rural, where you would typically see predominantly Caucasian people living out in the sticks, right? The trailer park people. The Heritage Foundation and others argue that crime tends to be concentrated in urban areas, which often lean Democratic. But data from Third Way shows that red states still have higher murder rates, even when big cities are excluded. And I'm going to put this up right here just to give you a kind of a visual of what this looks like. So this is from Third Way. Again, nonpartisan, unbiased. 21st century red state murder crisis. As we see all of your, quote, red states. And as you can see right here, the arrows are pointing up, except for in Alaska. In Alaska, the arrows are pointing down, which would confirm that crime rates per capita are going down. So, takeaways. So, as it reads here at the top, the red state murder rate was 33% higher than the blue state murder rate in 2021 and 2022. 2022 was the 23rd consecutive year that murder plagued Trump voting states at far higher levels than Biden voting states, as Joe Biden was our previous president. 8 out of 10 states with the highest murder rates in 2022 voted for Trump, voted for the Donald in both 2016 and 2020. From 2000 to 2022, the average red state murder rate was 24% higher than the average blue state murder rate. Red states like Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama are America's murder capitals and have had the highest 3 murder rates for 15 of the last 23 years. The excuse that sky-high red state murder rates are because of their blue cities is without merit. Even after removing the county with the largest city of red states and not from blue states, red state murder rates were still 20% higher in 2021 and 16% higher in 2022, as we see right here once again. So, for all those people that still have this notion that crime rates are always happening in, quote, blue states. And for the record, because I see a lot of people, when I put these clips up on TikTok, I see a lot of people that automatically assume because of these statements that I make, they automatically assume that I must be a Democrat. He has to be a Democrat because he talks about the Donald so much. For the record, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not a Demoblican or a Republicrat, because, as I always say, both parties are guilty as charged for creating what we have today, the highest rate of division in American history. And like I said several months ago, I brought up a movie called Civil War. And from what it appears, this is what the Donald's administration is wanting to create with American citizens, a civil war where American citizens are divided amongst each other, right? Versus being united, seeing all of this for what it truly is, and again, making their grievances known, right? Making their grievances known, because it's no secret that the Donald's approval ratings are in their mid 30s. I mean, some of the lowest approval ratings of any president in U.S. history. Lower than George Bush Senior and Junior. Lower than Jimmy Carter, right? And Jimmy Carter was a Democrat. So, again, the hostile takeover of Washington, D.C., and the hostile takeover of Los Angeles, the attempted hostile takeover. But more and more people are beginning to see this for what it is, because it appears that it's not just Black people or brown people that have their discrepancies against what's going on. You see multiple and a multitude of Caucasian people that are protesting all of this as well. And that includes MAGA supporters or former MAGA supporters. They see this for what it's worth, or they're starting to see it for what it truly is. It's a hostile takeover, city by city by city, of all the major cities where supposedly crime is at an all-time high. And so I'm going to put this up here. I have a few questions for the Donald. So I'm going to put this up. So when I see this here, Oh, gosh. So to President, the Donald, since you love interrupting the leadership of Black people in positions of power, how come you didn't put tap dancing Tim Scott in a position of power outside of his Senate seat? He was loyal to you. He was loyal. Remember, he went to that podium. Remember, he went to the podium and said, "Oh, I love you, boss." Remember that? "I love you. I'll do anything you say, sir." Remember that? "I just loves you." Tim Scott, how come you didn't give him a position of power? You see in the corner on the right, big boy Byron Donalds. How come you didn't give him a position of power? He was loyal. He was going with you on your campaign trail and speaking for you and defending you. He was loyal. How come you didn't give him a position of power? Then you see the other three under Byron Donalds, Mr. Wesley Hunt. How come you didn't give him a position of power? Remember, he was one of the people that was going to the Black barber shops and defending Donald and trying to convince Black people to vote for him, right? Wesley Hunt. Then next to him, you have John James. How come you didn't give him a position of power? He's in a leadership role. He's in a leadership position. And above him, you have Burgess Owens. How come you didn't give him a position of power? Right? How come you didn't give either of these gentlemen? They're in positions of power. How come you didn't put them as Secretary of Defense? How come you didn't make one of them your chief of staff? So they can communicate with Muriel Bowser. So they can communicate with Police Chief Smith. So they can communicate with Governor Moore. How come you didn't put them in positions of power? Because they were loyal throughout your entire campaign, but you didn't put not one of them in positions of power. But many people say that the Donald is not racist. And I don't know if he is or not, but I do know that he didn't put any of these people in positions of power. There's only one person, and that's who he put into the Department of Urban Housing, right? Urban Housing and Development. Only one. And obviously, he's not even of any significance. Only one. Which he has the position that Dr. Ben Carson had during his first term, right? Because obviously, the Donald believes that that's the only position that's even worthy of giving a Black person of leadership. The Department of Urban Housing and Development. And lastly, I'll put this up because a lot of people, Black and white, people that are truly into politics and political history, I'm going to put this up here just to pay homage to these gentlemen here. I can only imagine what these gentlemen and what their spirits are feeling right now, because none of their respective future colleagues are never going to be put into positions of power, not by our current president. So from left to right, just to acknowledge, to the left, you have Mr. Hiram Revels, Senator, Mississippi. Representative Benjamin S. Turner, Alabama. Representative Robert Carlos DeLarge, South Carolina. Representative Josiah T. Walls from Florida. I wonder if Governor Ron DeSantis even knows who he is, or whether he knows if he even existed. Next, Mr. Jefferson P. Long, Representative, Georgia. Joseph H. Rainey, Representative, South Carolina. And Robert B. Elliott, Representative, South Carolina. All of these distinguished gentlemen were leaders in their respective Republican House seats. And in the case of Hiram R. Revels, he was a senator in Mississippi. And we're talking over 150 years ago. All of these distinguished black gentlemen, leaders. But the Donald couldn't fathom putting any of those gentlemen that I just put up on the screen, couldn't fathom putting them in any positions of power. Because obviously he believes that they're incapable of being in leadership roles, right? Executive leadership roles, or in positions of power, federal power. Because remember, he likes loyalty. And the Donald also said, as I encourage all of you to go back and just go back and watch his interview from 1992 with Charlie Rose. Just go back. It's a whole hour interview. Just go back and watch that interview and just listen to how the Donald answers all of Charlie Rose's questions. And to Charlie Rose's credit, he pressed him, because most of your reporters today don't press the Donald with hard questions. And as we all know, because some people have played the clip on social media, the Donald likes to get revenge, right? He likes to get revenge on those that are disloyal, right? He likes to get even. Those are his words. He likes to get even with people that are disloyal. So what do you think he's doing right now while he's creating multiple shit shows on a daily basis? Shit shows. Racism is a cancer, and it's being televised on a regular basis from all of these federal personnel, including the Donald, including Peter Hegseth, including Miss J.D. Dance, and including Mr. Swamp Thing Stephen Miller. So, and quite possibly Judge Jeanine Pirro as well, as she's the head honcho, once again, of Washington, D.C., head honcho attorney, all of a sudden. So she can sign off on all the stuff that the Donald may want to do with Washington, D.C. It's a power grab. It's a hostile takeover. So we'll see how all of this pans out. I know this is supposed to be the Kennetic Hour in minutes, and we've gone about 51 minutes. But all of this had to be put to the forefront because, again, for those of you out there that are watching, many, and it's no secret, many have been blinded by all the elementary terminologies that the Donald has plagued us with repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again. You know, it's a psychological operation, and the Donald and his entire administration have learned how to play this game to perfection, which is why you see what's going on over and over and over and over again. So make sure you subscribe, Make sure you click thumbs up, as you see there in the corner. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Tell everyone that you know to subscribe. I love doing this. And once again, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm just a U.S. citizen that calls all of these happenings as they are, not what you think they are, or what you might want them to be. I call them as they are in real time. So thank you to everyone that chooses to tune in. And until next time.